Hello, dear friends, and thanks for joining us on our show, Secrets of the Eternal Book, where we talk about how to read the 5 books of Moses or the Torah correctly, how to put yourself, so to speak, inside this book and feel everything that goes on there. Noah, chapter 4. As always, with us is Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman. Hello. I'd say that maybe it's vice versa. How to see that it's within us, that our internal structure is actually what is described in the Torah, that it speaks of 2 forces that act inside a person, positive and negative, and the forces of nature in general. And we learn from the perception of reality that everything that we sense outside is in fact within us, meaning that all the nature, universe, outer space, everything sensed within us. Does it exist outside of us? It's a big question for an ordinary person, but actually nothing exists outside us. It's all our inner sensations. So everything that's written there speaks of our perception of the world, of how we sense it, and all the worlds and everything exists inside a person. I'm afraid that we might confuse people by this. How can a person imagine that all the worlds exist within him? You can talk to people working in the fields of biology, physiology, perception of reality. Well, philosophy, unfortunately, not, because philosophers nowadays are kind of vanishing away. So, if we're talking about a person as a certain device, for example, like a computer, if I can see some images on the screen of my computer, then it means that they already exist inside the computer. Some electric signals that were not visual and didn't have any volume, didn't have anything except carrying some virtual information, have already been sent to the computer. The virtual information was processed in a certain way by the computer, and it's in front of me, just for me, with the purpose for me to understand that it appears on the screen in a certain way in the forms of letters, drawings, visual images, etc., and maybe in the form of different kinds of movements, but it's all for me, just for me. In fact, it's all the same electrical forces or just forces because they're set up in that way in relation to me. So these are just forces that operate within nature, and if I perceive them as a picture, is because I perceive them, their combination that way. In general, nothing exists in nature besides forces. Therefore, everything that we perceive around us, this is all a combination of forces that build a picture for me on my screen. But what exists outside are just forces. Why? What is it for? Because I can't perceive it in any other way. And why do I perceive this world the way that I do? Because that's how I'm built. And in order to understand this, we have to go back to the beginning. Why is man built the way that he is? With the qualities and the forces that he has that appear in the form of a video image or letters or sounds or tactile sensations, but he needs to perceive something that exists as if outside of his sensations, because otherwise he can't perceive it. We need to feel somehow. And in order to feel, we have our 5 senses for it, which converts something that's not sensed into something that can be sensed. But that which is not sensed exists outside of us. And so the Torah, it tells us about how can we perceive the universe in a way that we will work with the forces themselves, and so that we won't be limited by our 5 senses. And what do we need that for? First of all, in order to get rid of our body. I need this animal body right now, because without it, I can't sense anything. Our body is an animal, but I can't feel anything without it. If I disconnect from it, the ear aches, the eye gets swollen, something suddenly happens, the limbs get numb, and I stop feeling. I disconnect from the world. What Were I in the world created so limited? No. This limitedness was given to me only in order for me to get rid of it myself. When I'll be able to rise above it, by that, first of all, I come out from under its boundaries, and if I rise above these 5 limited animal qualities of mine, vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch. If I rise above that, I build a new kind of sensation above that called Sfirot, Keter Chochma Bina, Zaran Pin and Malchut. I apologize for such indecent expressions, but these are terms and you can't get away from them. Just to mention that Sfirot derived from the word to glow. Right, because in these qualities I start feeling light. In my tactile senses, I just feel, maybe pleasure, maybe some unpleasant feeling, but there I feel light, meaning unlimited, unending pleasure if you rise above the body. Yes, when you rise above the body, there you have light. So you come out of the body and you see it from the side. We don't even see it in the form of this body. We see it in the form of these small egoistic properties, qualities that are trying to absorb everything and unfortunately, or not unfortunately, can't succeed. But do we see how pitiful it all is? No. We just see that it can't work any other way. It's like next to me there's a dog or a cat. I can stroke them, sit next to them. I understand that this is my little friend and that this is its level of development. And this is my level of development. And this is how we complete each other. But I need this little friend of mine in order for me to, in general, come out of it and continue growing further. And I shouldn't abuse it. I should take care of it and treat it like an animal. Take care of it and provide it with all necessary things, but that's it. You're talking about the body. Yes. And beyond that, it's harmful. Did you ever have a dog and you gave it too much to eat? Yeah, they become obese. And it's a problem. Exactly. An animal is built in such a way that only the minimum that it needs is what it needs. That's it. And a dog actually knows that. Animals that weren't corrupted by that know it, and they exactly know that, yes, this is good for me, and this is redundant. So wild animals understand this better. Right, because you have cats and dogs that like eating cakes with us. Okay, this is very interesting, perception of reality. And now, gradually, we are going back to the portion of Noah. This is why we're talking about these portions, in order to enter a new reality through them, to feel forces, to feel the forces that are acting behind our imaginary world. And it's imaginary because this is how we perceive it in our senses. Were we to have different senses, we'd depict it differently. So, a dog or a bee perceive reality completely differently. Yes, but that's still on the level of our world. It's on the same level. We're in the same world with them, with a bee, with a dog. But if we're talking about a different dimension, that we enter above our body, then there everything's felt as sheer forces. And then a person feels that he is unlimited, that his perception is unlimited, that he is beyond time, space, and motion, because these 3 limitations simply keep us in a prison cell. And when we get rid of them, we start perceiving, grasping the true and unlimited perception. And it isn't surprising that a person starts living endlessly forever. No, because he is unlimited by the perception of the body. The word eternity becomes a common concept for a person. It's a common state that it's possible to exist forever. Because for him, the cause and effect become the same. Because he deals with the forces that cause our consequences, actions. When the cause and effect for him are all the same, then the notion of time vanishes. Time is something that exists between the cause and its effect. Something happened, and then there's the effect. And the distance between them It could be a gap in the form of time or in the form of space. And when for you, the action itself and the thought and the beginning and its end are together, because you're dealing with forces here. You rose to a level where there are only forces. This force changed somehow, that's it. There are different actions happening in our world, but you pay no attention to it. This action is non-important to you because our world is subordinated to these upper forces, and therefore everything that happens in this world is already a result, and therefore time for you no longer exists. The result no longer exists. The cause is the effect. So when I connect to the eternal, all this does not exist. That's called the world of endlessness, that it's unlimited. To connect to eternity. Yes, and this is what this book is written for, in order to bring a person to that. And therefore, Torah comes from the word O, light, and Hora, instruction, the instruction of how to bring us to light. And the light in our world is the highest energy. In our world, it's the highest speed. And the spiritual, as Rambam writes, imagine a Kabbalist in the 11th century writes that the higher world is above the speed of light. Back then, to talk about the speed of light in the 11th century, can you imagine? And he writes, someone asks him in a letter about it, about the spiritual world, what correlation is there, and this how he expresses himself, that the spiritual world is a condition, a state that is above the speed of light. In order to write about that, you have to first attain it? Of course. How can you talk about light, about its speed, and that there is something that exists above this speed? And all of these concepts in the 11th century. And even today, these things are only grasped somehow theoretically. On our previous show, we talked about entering the Ark, Noah's Ark, with all of his best qualities and desires and how he grows there. We described it as an embryo developing in his mother's womb. The water leaves, the Ark sits on Mount Ararat. It's like the maternal waters are coming out. Yeah, the door in Noah's Ark opens as if the mother's womb opens up and a new life, a new man is born. Yeah, and there's new land and it's all ready for him, for life, for everything. And there's one more thing that I wanted to ask about this. What does it mean that when the Ark sits on the Mount Ararat, it says that Noah opened a window. He made a window and opened it. What does it mean to open it? I don't know how to express it in simple words. The thing is that here there's a transition from one degree to the next. There, he was like a child inside his mother, completely under her protection, annulling himself, and therefore she completely controls him and gives him everything that he needs, pushes away everything that he doesn't. The entire organism is under her protection and complete control. And here starts opening a window. A window means a deficiency, a flaw, as if. A new, unfulfilled desire. That in order to make a window, we create a deficiency in the wall. We cut out a piece of it. The wall is no longer whole. But thanks to that, light enters the room. So here we start understanding that development is based on the revelation of new incompletions, flaws, deficiencies, a lack of completeness, and it is necessary in order to let the light in. It's a paradox, as if one denies the other. So before the birth of a new world happens, so it happens that the ark opens up, meaning that the ark was complete and perfect. You're fully protected inside. There, you're inside the mother. What could be better? Yeah, it's the best thing. So the creator, he protects you and that's it. He tells you, you did this and don't think about the rest. I'll take complete care of you and everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. And now you're breaking the completeness of his protection. You yourself are, but it is in order to be born independently to exit him and to start your adult life. And there's a lot written about this in the wisdom of Kabbalah, how a person begins to discover a new level of desires inside of him. So I'm looking for a deficiency in me, in the Creator, in his protecting system. You cut out a window. You want to be independent. You separate yourself from him. That means that the protection that he organized for you, you're looking for flaws in it. You overgrew it. You have to be born. So I have no free will here. I want to have free will. Yes. So your independence is what becomes revealed here just a bit. And this is just in a few words because we can express it in the form of forces, vectors, different formulas, and how the actions of the creator and of man balance each other out, how new desires are formed that have to be realized, meaning to ascend from the degree of the embryo that a person's on in that arc to the level of a little man that already begins to perceive the upper world. When Noah comes out of the ark, he's actually born in a new world. So what happens is that Noah, by this, says that I want myself to earn the spiritual world. I don't want for you to feed me with a spoon. Right. A conscious perception of the upper world begins here. And as always, it's not that pleasant, and problems begin, and day and night, and ascents and descents, and you have to hold on. Growth always happens with the help of two states. You need new egoistic forces, and to correct them, and above that correction, you attain the upper world. That's how it is. The ego was given to us so that by inverting it, like plowing the land, you rise to a higher degree. We have no other substance. And so the entire book, the entire Pentateuch, it all consists of sins and corrections, words all the time. Yeah. These are man's inner problems that he resolves and rises above them until he reaches the level of the Creator. And everyone has to go through it. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Meaning that these properties, which were born in you now, that were acquired by you, right, inside the ark, a person acquires his qualities, his properties, like an embryo acquires the properties of a human being. That he starts from a drop of seed, and towards the exit, he already becomes a baby. So that baby contains all the properties of a future man, who, while being in a small state, is capable of their development. So be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, means that all the properties that you possess, that I gave you during those days, while you stayed during the time of the flood, when you sat quietly inside, and I developed those properties in you, now you have to start developing these properties further yourself. Be fruitful and multiply in these qualities, properties, and fill the earth. Earth derives from the word desire, ratzon, and eretz from the word land, and fill your egoistic desires with a new altruistic quality, with new altruistic qualities and properties with which you were just born into a new world, meaning that a person was born in the upper world. He acquired the properties of bestowal and love. So take these egoistic qualities, add the altruistic ones to them, and this way you can multiply and go and grow until you correct your entire ego with the help of these new qualities that you have acquired. So it's necessary to connect these two qualities. Yes, every moving thing that is a veil shall be food for you. I give it all to you as I gave the green plant. meaning the animate, vegetative, still, any feelings, properties, qualities that exist in a person, he has to correct them all. But in what way, in what order, combination, this is a whole separate system. Maybe we'll talk about this when we'll study about the mechanism, the structure of the soul. Then we will understand how is it built, what do you have to start with, what's interconnected with what, etc. It's like suddenly you have different important organs like the heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, brain, of course, the sense organs, and also you have flesh, muscles, tendons, etc., but they're all interconnected. We can see it on how an embryo develops inside the womb. He develops in a very strange way. Suddenly, this grows, then that part, then this. And some parts as even appear like a tail or something, and then they disappear. It's all a tremendous system of the interaction of these two forces, that in the connection between them, the positive and negative forces, they draw this image, meaning they take away everything that's unnecessary and add what is necessary. And this is how they work during the 9 months that the embryo is in the womb. And that's how a person starts to consciously be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, developing on his own. Meaning that now he has to learn the program, and in accordance with this program, by studying it, to gradually start implementing it himself. Previously, the higher force implemented everything as a mother does with her child, and now he does it by himself, gradually realizing the program. Well, of course, not completely by himself, but in connection with the Creator. Some of it is done by the Creator, some of it is done by man, and as man goes and grows and develops, he takes a larger part upon himself until he completely realizes the entire program and corrects himself. So he takes these egoistic desires and starts correcting them. It says that this will be as food for you. Food is a kind of scrutiny of what's good for me, what's bad for me. I have to kill something, cut some piece out. I have to boil it or grill it or do something with it. I have to digest this in me. You mean our egoistic desires, yeah? And the most important thing is that if inside the mother a child gets everything ready in the form of blood that inside of him turns into flesh, into his body, however, now I have to prepare this food for me. It's processed inside of me, and then these elements are processed into the substance of the body, meaning inside of me now, there is an enormous factory that processes all of my desires and thoughts in order for me to put them all together from the still, vegetative, and animate, egoistic levels and reach equivalence of form with the Creator. And it's possible because I felt what the first degree of spirituality is. Of course, a person learns only from examples, and therefore in all of our educational institutions, the only thing that works is an example. In order for a person to advance in his spiritual development, he first of all needs the revelation of the Creator. Of course, what can you learn from otherwise? How are you going to be in that arc then? What will you interact with? What window will you cut out and what wall? It's the connection with the Creator, and when you're inside of Him, you feel how you're enveloped by His forces, and you feel that you need to cut through all of this a window to establish some kind of attitude towards Him, and then I come out with all of my desires and properties. It means that the entire arc's content comes out. It's as if one person that consists of everything that he has within, and then he begins to develop. Without being surrounded by the Creator, being in constant dialogue with Him, it's impossible. So this is what a person needs to demand. This is what Kabbalah begins with revelation. Yes, but it's always to the measure to which a person grows. And how do we grow? Only inside the womb do we completely annul ourselves toward the Creator. I'm talking about spiritual development. And then a person feels that there is some kind of spiritual force that is working on him, but he doesn't exactly understand what it is. He only annuls himself in order not to stop the force of the Creator from influencing him, developing him. No matter what he does, I agree in advance. And then he already starts demanding, show me, teach me, how exactly am I supposed to do this? And here the Creator, just like a grown-up plays with a child, shows him what to do. Or plays against them, but supports him like we do with children. We're gradually approaching the end of this show, but still, I'd like to ask. A person needs to read this book and other Kabbalistic books with the inner sensation that I would not recommend a person to read the Torah, the Pentateuch. If a person's not prepared, ready for it, it'll just confuse him. It will lead him to some traditional attitude toward this book as to a historic novel. So better listen to our talks first. You should first master the language dictionary. So first you have to tell yourself for sure that what is written in this book, not a single word is familiar to me in its true form. I should first learn how to automatically translate these words into their divine inner meaning, and only then will this book become my light, disclosure, revelation. It'll really tell me about what the Creator wants to tell me, about our relationship. And, one way or another, of course, there's some unusual impression because, after all, a book that was written 3,000 years ago and tells about the Creator as the main character, it's not a very ordinary book. But still, you see how much it has done in mankind. And also, unpleasant things too. So, on this optimistic note, we're finishing our show. Stay with us. We're going to continue talking about the eternal book and how to read it, how to attain it. Be with us. Till next time, all the best.